AMBAZONIA calling. News, analysis, commentary, opinion, editorials. AMBAZONIA calling is a co-production of Africa Freedom Network, The Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. Welcome. My name is Ntumfoin Bo Herbert, and I bring you revolutionary greetings from our studios in Washington, D.C. to all of you, friends of AMBAZONIA and fellow AMBAZONIANs on Ground Zero and across the globe.
The fears are uncalled for. AMBAZONIA shall not be another South Sudan. I am C. Ajinvo Ambe.
Video footage has confirmed the presence of French soldiers fighting along their Cameroonian peers. I am innocent here.
Women have really never been behind, not when they bear the brunt of the pain, when they are the most afflicted by the indignities of war, the loss of sons and spouses, the rape of daughters when it is not themselves. This is Jude Agua again.
Not only must we restore our independence, we must ensure going forward that no politician will ever again deny our people the right to self-rule. This is the monk from Ibalikumato, Vajrakov himself.
You will be surprised by who is this week's winner of the Nyamfuka of the Week. This is Lambert Mbom.
We at AMBAZONIA Calling believe that a tribunal will be set up to prosecute all those guilty of atrocity crimes, war crimes, and crimes against humanity in AMBAZONIA, and anyone involved in this revolution should always bear that in mind. Krista Cunningham, AMBAZONIA Calling.
What a week this has been. President Emmanuel Macron of France called the colonial president of Cameroon and said some nice and not so nice things on the phone. There is no secret that Macron spoke to Biya. I take that back. There is no doubt that Macron called to reprimand Biya about the continued massacres across Amazonia. Macron appeared to be saying he had ordered Biya to consider something he called decentralization or regionalism. And, of course, Ambazonians rejected this to a person. Here with that and more is Innocent here with this week's wrap-up of the news.
The joyful welcome given to a convoy of Red Dragons as they drove into Menji, capital town of Lobia-Alem State in Ambazonia's southern zone on Friday. The brave Ambazonian fighters had just liberated the town from colonial forces and pledged protection to civilians, excited to welcome them. Also on Friday, the Tigers of Ambazonia killed several terrorist soldiers of the Republic of Cameroon in a 3-hour-long gun battle in Osing, hometown of General Tato in Manu State. One Amba soldier was killed in the battle, which ended with the Ambazonian flag being hoisted in the heart of the palace of General Tato in a sign of victory. 2 La République soldiers were killed in another gun battle which opposed them to ADF fighters at Milim, Kumbo in the northern zone.
Everybody was stranded. They checked everybody, getting right into the surgical theater. And even those who went to visit their patients were brutalized.
There was some truly sad news of La République du Cameroon terrorist forces attacking the district hospital in Batibo, where they beat up, molested, tortured, and chased away nurses, medical doctors, pregnant women, and patients from the hospital. The attack on the hospital was Thursday, and it involved colonial forces breaking their way into all wards, even into the surgical theater at the hospital, and now live in the bushes. It would appear that Boyo State in Ambazonia's northern zone bore the brunt of the fighting this week. One WhatsApp post summarized the ordeal aptly with the words, "The worst is happening in Boyo." The report said a total of 12 rockets had been fired at Anjing village, not far off from a makeshift military camp that is a stone throw from St. Bede's College, Ashing, where they are reportedly detaining several pregnant mothers and kids to serve as human shields. Still in Com, there was the case of Bobe Aaron Salah, who was pulled out of a transport vehicle at Bangor and executed on the side of the road, along with the case of Napriska, who was executed by colonial forces as she waited for a ride to take her into Bamenda town in the northern zone. There is credible information and evidence suggesting that the colonial army of Biabimvondo has used some kind of chemical weapon in both Belo in the northern zone and in Muyuka in the southern zone, which has resulted in civilians complaining of difficulty breathing and itching in the eyes, throat, and exposed parts of their body. This is coming in the wake of video footage that has confirmed the presence of French soldiers fighting along their Cameroonian peers. Still in Muyuka, citizens have again blocked the main highway through the town, the highway linking Boya to Kumba, with those manning the barricades sending a strong message to La République. We are taking our country back, whether you want it or not.
Now Muyuka be this. We don't blow out from Bush to Kali Church. Now our country we want to come back, whether La République or not. Our country.
They brandished machetes, promising to hurt anyone who dares to open up the road to traffic. Away from ground zero, the leadership of Ambazonians in South Africa has issued a strongly worded statement to the effect that they will henceforth focus on supporting ground zero. It comes on the heels of leadership changes within the interim government pressure group.
He said he didn't drive anybody, that everybody is at home. Why is he sending food? Sending food for who? Let him stay with his food. We don't care about his food. Okay. We better prefer to suffer in Nigeria than going to collecting his food.
Despite loud and repeated rejections of Cameroon's humanitarian aid by Ambazonians, Cameroon's ambassador to Washington has slated a fundraiser planning meeting for Monday, July 9th at the Colonial Embassy. Ambazonians have said the drive is like a rapist taking their victim to hospital. Leaders from all 6 constituent groups of the Ambazonian Recognition and Collaboration Council, ARC, have concluded an open house held at the Catholic University of America in Washington, D.C. Work is afoot to launch the CARA plan, which leaders say is to empower every good-willing Ambazonian across the world, especially in the 64 countries who voted in favor of the independence of Southern Cameroon in 1961, to canvass their local representatives to defend their vote. Elvis Ngole has been doing the round of media thanking the Roman emperor for his 30 pieces of silver. In an interview with state-run CRTV, the professor, a persona non grata in his own community, referred to Biya as a loving father who has never failed him. Finally, French President Emmanuel Macron has finally prescribed the dead on arrival and ineffective painkiller, decentralization, as cure to the terminal cancer known as Cameroon. He was speaking to reporters about the ongoing war between Cameroon and Ambazonia while on a working visit to Nigeria.
J'ai eu Paul Biya au téléphone avant de venir à l'Union africaine.
I talked with Paul Biya on the phone before coming to the African Union Summit because I knew that he was going to be absent. As I was visiting with one of his neighbors, we discussed about the challenges of this moment. We touched on Cameroon's problems of cohesion and the instability for the state. We are aware of the crisis in the English-speaking regions. I offered to help Cameroon return to stability, which I think can be won in part by recognizing what constitutes diversity for the country. There is a need for the decentralization and regionalization that can help resolve some of these problems. I think that the region needs stability and good models. It is not up to the French president to order anything, but to support such reforms articulated as part of a national vision. These problems can also be resolved through improved regional integration. I firmly believe in the potential of regional integration within ECOWAS for Cameroon and for Nigeria. Whatever France can do to help, including within the framework of rethinking a monetary policy, France will do its part.
Dans le cadre d'une politique monétaire qui devrait être repensée, la France le fera.
His remarks sparked speculation that octogenarian Paul Biya will be addressing his nation in the days ahead to execute what Father Emmanuel Macron has instructed. I am Innocent Chia.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
Still ahead in this edition, we have The Devil Unmasked with Professor Emmanuel Tatamenta. We have a winner for the Nyamfuka of the Week. And we are not done until we have heard our letter to Joshua. So stay tuned, kick back, relax, and enjoy Ambazonia Calling. Crowds chanting on the 9th of July 2011 in Juba, capital of South Sudan, on the occasion of the independence of the then youngest African nation. It was a glorious moment, relayed to the world by media outlets like Al Jazeera.
A nation is born, the symbol of sovereignty and identity flies for the first time. The scene in South Sudan is nothing less than electric. Hundreds of thousands of people converge on Juba, the world's newest capital city. They celebrate their long-awaited independence, marked by 2 civil wars over 5 decades and countless lives lost. What was Africa's largest nation is now split into 2. Dignitaries from around the world attend the midday ceremony, including the leader of Sudan, Omar al-Bashir. His government was the first to recognize the new state and its new president, Salva Kiir.
As the President of the Republic of South Sudan, I shall be faithful and bear true allegiance to the Republic of South Sudan.
Fast forward 7 years to Monday this week, the anniversary of that independence, and plenty of the hope has turned to despair. Boom has produced gloom, leading to some of those who consider recognizing Ambazonia as Africa's youngest nation to ask the question, is there a risk that Ambazonia could turn out to be just another South Sudan? I pose that question to Ambazonia Calling's Barrister Siambe.
There is no crystal ball that can be looked into or any fortune teller that can accurately and completely tell where the chips will fall when all is said and done. It is no secret that the problem in South Sudan stems from conflict between the factions supporting President Salva Kiir, an ethnic Dinka, and factions supporting ousted Vice President Riek Machar, an ethnic Nuer. The mounting tensions and conflict between various Ambazonia liberation movements, especially our self-defense groups, that many fear could result in a South Sudan-type inferno, stem largely from disagreements over strategy and not the type of deep-rooted historical conflicts along ethnic lines that have existed between the Dinkas and the Nuers for decades. The issues that are causing friction in the ranks of Ambazonia groups can be resolved easily through communication and genuine collaborative action among the groups. If there is hope for South Sudan, there is greater hope and assurance for Ambazonia that does not have a similar volatile ethnological construct and has or should have the advantage of lessons learned from South Sudan, Eritrea, Rwanda, and other precedents. Gaining independence is one thing, but putting in place the structures and institutions for good governance, social and economic growth is the next crucial step that South Sudan has not been able to adequately focus on. Some say this is solely because of the ongoing civil war. The truth is, enough fingers also point to other players in its general geographic region and beyond that have maintained a strong hold on the nation and stand to benefit tremendously from its instability. The Ugandan army, for instance, provides security services to South Sudan at a hefty fee. Kenyan businesses abound in South Sudan, basically controlling the banking, hospitality, and airline industries. A safe and secure South Sudan would obviously mean a shutting off of that tap. Forget the fact that Khartoum charges Juba exorbitant fees for the transportation of oil from the south through the north for onward exportation and ensures that conflict occurs and persists along the pipelines to disrupt and destabilize transportation. The instability of South Sudan makes it easier for Khartoum to declare that breaking up Sudan was a bad idea, given that South Sudan cannot survive on its own, even as the government continuously schemes and plots behind the scenes to perpetrate and exacerbate problems in the young nation. Other well-known culprits, like China, have not spared South Sudan their usual games of double dealing between Khartoum and Juba. Clearly, South Sudan finds itself at the mercy of players far and near, doing everything under the sun, moon, and stars to get the biggest bang for the smallest buck. The reverse is actually true for Ambazonia, that provides sustenance to surrounding nations like La République du Cameroon, Gabon, Central African Republic, and others. Additionally, the recent realization of many years of gross exploitation of its resources by La République du Cameroon, Big Brother France, and other culprits have turned all Ambazonians into crusaders against Western domination and exploitation if Ambazonia is to not become another exploited failed state. It all begins with leadership ensuring that Ambazonia does not start off on a footing of substantial dependency on any country or anyone that could turn it into a free-for-all vehicle to be taken for joyrides by all. It also depends largely on leadership resolving to rise above differences, effectively collaborating and quickly burying any hatchets that could possibly jeopardize the peace and stability of Ambazonia, putting it at risk of being ravaged like South Sudan. See Ajimbo Ambe for Ambazonia Calling.
If you are looking to invest in something truly exciting, look no further. You can now become a partner of Africa Freedom Network, which is getting set to launch the first ever radio television network serving Africa, serving Africans and friends of Africa around the globe and on the continent. With reporters based in 34 African countries and a news gathering capacity second to none, now lined up and ready to go, Africa Freedom Network is about to show exactly how news of Africa should be covered. It is the next big thing in African journalism and definitely the next big thing in investment in the news media. Get invited by sending us an email to info@africafreedomnetwork.com. If you want to attend our first ever General Assembly of Partners and Shareholders, which we have now rescheduled to Sunday, the 15th of July, please do not miss. Send us an email, info@africafreedomnetwork.com.
When injustice becomes law, resistance becomes a duty. The people of West Cameroon have a duty to resist your oppression.
It is, as usual, an honor to welcome on the phone Professor Emmanuel Tatamenta, our guest for our segment, The Devil Unmasked, The Truth Out. We had the French president go off to Nigeria. What do you make of the visit?
It was, to me, a very interesting visit that the French president could be going to meet President Buhari of Nigeria to negotiate the safe passage of the troops they have trained in Nigeria.
So you are affirming you want the world to know that the real purpose of the visit of President Macron to Nigeria was to negotiate safe passage for the French troops?
Invariably, that was it.
Okay, but he was going around all the place. He was talking about decentralization. What is this about decentralization?
Talking of decentralization, they just changed the name from province to region. And then they make sure that they tighten up the screws and they centralize more. It's time that somebody who is in Messager or in Kwakwa pays taxes, and the taxes are taken to Yaoundé. Then the mayor has to go begging for whatever chicken feed from there.
And part of the deceit this week was to hear, everybody start saying, Mr. Biya is going to make a speech soon. He's going to promise, he's going to release prisoners, he's going to declare amnesty, he's going to call a ceasefire, and so what? I mean, what do you answer to all of that? Because it just sounds to me like empty words and empty promises.
We have seen so many of such massive overstatements since he came to power. And when you really look at it, you see that there are people who act before they think. You wonder whether these people really have any thinking minds around them, or their brains are already dead.
Let's go through some of these things, Prof, because I want you to really give our people the message you would like them to hear. So, Mr. Biya comes out tomorrow. He says there's a ceasefire. What should our people do?
You see, the one who declared war is saying that there is a ceasefire. Our boys should stay in place and make sure that all the criminal troops, or marauding armed robbers, as I call them, because they don't have an army in Cameroon, you have marauding armed robbers. They should be cleared out of our territory because we are a sovereign nation. Even when you look at the ruling on Bakassi by the International Court of Justice of the 10th of October 2002, it states clearly that they should return to their boundaries at independence. So our boys should stay there and protect their territorial integrity, and Biya's criminals should evacuate our territory.
And should he say he's releasing political prisoners? What reaction?
Oh, that is automatic. That is automatic. They are not citizens. He has no right to keep any of them there. It is abduction of people from a sovereign country to their criminal country. So he has to release all of them before we start talking of reparations and so on. Because those are things we have to come to eventually, whether they like it or not.
And should they say negotiations?
Negotiation, we can only think of mediation in terms of the fact that we have to go back to the United Nations General Assembly Resolution 1608, which states that if there is to be any negotiation, we have to have a third party which will come in and then decide. And it can only be according to United Nations General Assembly Resolution 1514, which talks of unconditional independence. Unconditional independence for our territory and any other one. Not a matter of negotiating or discussing or dialoguing, living together. That is already out of the question. We cannot live together again with these folks. History has already taught us that our grandparents made horrible mistakes by trusting snakes, and we can no longer continue to survive with snakes in our abode.
Now, not only are people refusing to live with them, our people are rejecting anything they call humanitarian. I mean, you saw some illustration this week. Can you speak to it?
That is right. The United Nations, as lethargic as it is, and we understand what it stands for, we cannot settle down and abide this again. If we do it, future generations of Ambazonians will write us off in history because they will have to fight this war again, and we don't want to pass it to them. So the United Nations is really dealing with very critical issues, whether it is because of the corruption industrial complex that has already penetrated the United Nations so much that street wood logging and the golden statues are already blinding the people to see what is right and what is wrong. I do not know. But no matter what happens, we will have to fight it to the bitter end and let them understand that we are not for trading like charter slaves.
And so we have Atenganji this week going out saying they're bringing some humanitarian assistance to our people, and they've already said, including refugees in Nigeria, we don't want to see you. What are you telling our people on the ground?
How can they be talking of humanitarian assistance, whereas at the same time they are deploying troops, blasting bombs, blasting people's homes, killing people on a daily basis. So for whom is the humanitarian assistance? So we understand that it is part of the humanitarian genocide which they are bringing to our people. The good thing is that our people in Nigeria have said they don't want it. They don't want it. That is the way to go.
One last question here, Prof. We have gone through a week when we heard lots of quarrels across, groups, liberation groups, leaders, agitation on the ground. If you were to speak like an elder to leaders, to people on the ground, to groups that, think that they should not trust each other, what kind of advice would you provide?
They have to come together and think of the people who have died, those who are suffering, those who are in bushes and so on, rather than thinking about themselves. What I mean by this is that they have to be vigilant and collectively they have to play safe, not in dispersed ranks and fighting against each other, and they should prepare to confront the Biya criminals and the Macron criminals as a joint force, not in dispersed ranks, because we do not want to sell another Southern Sudan to the international community. That is why they are hesitating to come to our assistance, especially when they catch wind of such things. They just clap their hands, and you know that the enemies jubilate. They should come up openly and disavow all such nonsense, because Atanganji could be cooking up, or his surrogates could be cooking up some cock and bull stories and putting on social media and confusing people. We don't want that. So the so-called leaders who are feuding should come up and talk to each other and declare to us that they have buried the hatchet so that we can move on.
Thank you very much, Prof, and have a wonderful week.
Same to you.
This week, Ambazonia Calling is brought to you by themissionstribune.com, compassfreepress.com, and africafreedomnetwork.com.
The people of West Cameroon cannot be your slaves. The people of West Cameroon are not, you did not conquer them in war. How do you have an army that's supposed to protect children? Step out there, beat them, and rape some.
Women enjoying the Njang dance in Kujamkuku in Ambazonia's northern zone, setting the stage for a political rally there. Ambazonian women have been playing a remarkable role in the restoration quest, but their achievements have been drowned out and buried in what is still, sadly, a predominantly macho world. Have women been lost behind in this restoration quest? I pose that question to Ambazonia Calling's Jude Ozugen.
Women have really never been behind, not when they bear the brunt of the pain, when they are the most afflicted by the indignities of war, the loss of sons and spouses, the rape of daughters when it is not themselves. Look back 70 years to 1958. It is women who led one of the most remarkable rebellions against the colonialists, the Ando uprising in Com. Anlo was the mother of all Takenbengs, and the women who led it from places like Belo, Jinikom, and Fundong in the northern zone are among those seeing the names of their sons and spouses listed by the colonialists in Yaoundé as terrorists. Anlo was an all-female army. In an age when it was almost a scandal for women to wear pants, members of the Ando Society wore trousers when part of the strike consisted of starving their men folk sexually into submission on a particular matter. Then they used indecent exposures of elderly women to force abusive male politicians into political correctness. They organized mock burials of political figures to demonstrate their scathing contempt for their policies. Like Anlo, Ekpak in Manyo is a feminist-laden naked dance committed to agrarian reforms, life and death issues, and cleansing of the land of any plague or evil force. And God alone knows how much cleansing of the land is required at this time. Takenben used their numbers and social status to protect protesters. As with Ando, women use the not-so-obvious weapon of war, the nakedness of elderly women, threat of splashing a mixture of human waste mingled in urine at soldiers to force retreat, even for the most brutal army. Motivated by a genuine desire to save the victims of today's restoration quest, a League of Women stands tall in its service. When they fell too young to be admitted into the real traditional Takembeng house, a new version of Takembeng in white made its debut in the streets of New York on September 22nd and the U.S. Capitol on October 1st, 2017. One of the earliest pictures of an unmasked Ambazonian fighter was a lady who had previously been raped at the University of Boyar. Women bring to this struggle everything that men lack: emotion, reason, charm, beauty, resilience, tenacity, staying power, wit, intuition, humor, and attention to detail, a caring for the most vulnerable, and a jealous protestation for the mission of restoration that is best served by a person not seeking self-aggrandizement or a political kingdom. This is Jude Agua Ozogen reporting for Ambazonia Calling.
For more stories from around the world, go to the World Wide Web at themissionstribune.com, compassfreepress.com, and africafreedomnetwork.com.
Last week, we aired a paper issuing guidelines on what Ambazonian freedom fighters can do and what they should not do. Many of you reached out to us to let us know how much you appreciated that paper, and many recommended that we should run it again. So here again, and by popular demand, is Ambazonia Calling's Chrissa Cunningham.
Campaigners for the restoration of the independence of Ambazonia have made a wise choice from the very onset of this revolution to pursue only legal, diplomatic, and nonviolent approaches to achieve their goal. Crowds of Ambazonians waving tree branches in a sign of peace bear witness to that commitment. Unfortunately, the colonial regime declared war against so-called secessionists and now treats every Ambazonian as a terrorist. A growing number of mostly young people have responded by evoking their inalienable right to self-defense. However, in order to avoid committing any war crimes, atrocity crimes, or crimes against humanity, pro-independence fighters should follow strict guidelines. Here are 5 they should prioritize. First, they should not attack colonial forces unless they are attacked, provoked into attacking, or are forced to defend themselves. Should this happen, they should always write a report documenting the incident and provide that to their commanders or human rights organizations. Second, they should never launch revenge killings or retributive killings targeting anyone. This is the hallmark of the colonial forces. Pro-independence forces acting in self-defense should therefore never copy the savagery of the colonial forces. Instead, Ambazonians should multiply those incidents where they are seen on WhatsApp video, caring for the most vulnerable, providing food, shelter, and protection. Third, liberation forces must never target civilians or an unidentified part of a civilian population, as such acts would qualify as crimes against humanity, and these are ungodly actions. That's why the call by some for French speakers to be targeted is wrong and should never be heeded. Fourth, the commanders of pro-independence forces must remember that they constitute a de facto authority, just as within an army. They should avoid being charged with war crimes by never tolerating, encouraging, abetting, or ordering massacres, dehumanizing treatment, or extrajudicial punishment, including summary executions. They should never act like a death squad, should not inflict unjust imprisonment, make use of child soldiers, or commit rape. You must not stoop to the level of your persecutors. Fifth, do not take hostages or abduct anyone unless your survival depends upon it, or if you would be killed if you failed to take the person hostage. However, should you be forced to take anyone hostage or prisoner, you must never harm them, must never torture them, and must do everything possible to release them as soon as it is safe for you to do so. Again, document any such incidents and report them to superiors and human rights organizations. Otherwise, you run the risk of the colonizer committing crimes and hanging them around your neck. We at Amazonia Calling believe that a tribunal will be set up to prosecute all those guilty of atrocity crimes, war crimes, and crimes against humanity in Ambazonia, and anyone involved in this revolution should always bear that in mind. Krista Cunningham, Ambazonia Calling.
The problem we have in West Cameroon is the problem that will bring down Cameroon. If you do not handle it well, you will not know Cameroon as it is in a few months or in a few years.
As during every week, many serious contenders were in consideration this week for the crown of shame known as the Nyamfuka of the Week. And this week, as on previous ones, there is still one crown and one winner. Two runners-up though. Here with the rundown of who won the dishonor to be rubbished is Ambazonia Calling's Lambert Mbom.
It would seem that ex-convicts share a common thread. As with former New Bell inmate Paul Atanganji, former Cameroonian goalkeeper Bel Joseph Antoine, himself a former convict who served time at the Boya production prisons until he was released from there to play for Prisons Football Club Boya, this week Bel Joseph Antoine opened his detimop, as our people will say in Pidgin, to heap abuse on the entire nation of Ambazonia. Bel Joseph Antoine's stupidity is well known and came as no surprise for someone who tried. But as a failure he has been at everything he has tried except play soccer, Bel Joseph Antoine came up last, winning bronze in this week's race for Nyamfuka of the Week. Coming in just ahead of him was Fritz Takang, the man who this week used a video posting online to deliver Judas's kiss of death to Ambazonian soil, revealing to colonial forces one of the few safe passages via a hanging bridge for Amazonian forces. Digimas outlined the plot in great detail in a must-listen audio that lives on a WhatsApp group near you. You have to hear it to believe, but a few things are clear, and only Digimas could put them out there so soundly. As Digimas says, Fritz Takang has refused to use his eyes this week to see, and is therefore condemned to use them to cry tomorrow and forever, just like Judas did. For giving away war secrets to the colonizer, for eating his own soul thinking that he was eating up Ambazonia, Fritz Takang is this week's runner-up for the dishonorable title of Nyamfuka of the Week. Without an iota of doubt, the people who truly did it in grand style this week are any and all those Ambazonian leaders who still have the naivety to believe that somehow God has appointed them to lord it over the people even before they finish freeing themselves from the oppression and repression of the colonizer. Ambazonian leaders who continue to believe that they alone can do this. Those who continue to believe that they have it right and no one else can contribute. Those within the political side or the military side of things who believe that everyone must come under their unified command. Those who use bullying tactics, who use political gangsterism, fame mania, and loud surrogates on WhatsApp to try to intimidate others. Those who refuse to collaborate, who refuse to recognize why all groups complement each other, and who fail to acknowledge that we need to fight the colonizer from many different fronts, all aimed at bringing us to Boya. Those who spend time attacking fellow Ambazonians instead of the colonizer. They are winners of this week's dishonorable award, the Nyamfuka of the Week. This is Lambert Mbom for Ambazonia Calling.
French President Emmanuel Macron delivered a message to all Africans this week during a town hall type event which he held in Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria. His message to all Africans could not be more relevant to the ongoing pursuit of independence restoration and the recognition of Ambazonia as Africa's youngest nation. I listened to Macron and I heard him speak directly to Ambazonians. The French president insists rightly that the destiny of all Africans, including the destiny of Ambazonians, is and must remain in our hands.
Africa is the one to decide for Africa, to explain about Africa, and to create its own model. Nobody has to decide for our future. We are the one to decide. Nobody has to lecture us.
We Ambazonians must assume full responsibility for obtaining for ourselves that which we believe we deserve.
Which means that we have to take our responsibility.
So many people tell Ambazonians that what they are doing is not right, that they needed to ask before doing it. But this is what Macron advises you to do, Ambazonians.
I mean, if I'm here today, it's just because I wanted to change a lot of things, and I decided to innovate and take my risk in political life. I never asked for the permission to do so.
He himself never asked anyone, and you should not listen to anyone who tells you to wait.
And guess what? Even when I tried to get some advice from the insiders of this game, the first advice was, you should wait a little bit. Wait a little bit. At a point of time, it will be for you. But not now. Never follow this kind of advice.
Macron tells Ambazonians that no one else, not the French, not Cameroon, no one has the ideas on which Ambazonia should be built. According to him, you do have the best ideas for your country and you need to forge forward.
If you want to do it, if you want to change this world, if you want to change your country, if you believe in your innovation, in your project, just make it feasible, just create, just dare, and just do it right now.
Nigerians asked Macron for advice on how to handle their challenges, and his reply was simple. Take risk if you want to achieve. That message is valid for you, Ambazonians.
Take your risk. Take your risk. I mean, it seems to be a joke. I think the first thing is to be sincere and to take the part of your own risk. There is no success without being a risk taker. No success.
The reason Ambazonians must carry through to the end is because so many people are telling us it is impossible to achieve independence. That is what they told President Macron. He recalled that this week in Nigeria.
Too many people told me it was impossible.
Success, said Macron, does not and will not come unless you are independent. Again, unless you are independent. Please just hear Macron.
And being independent from pressures, from people, for me is the starting point to do what you believe in and to make useful things.
Now look who Macron is blaming for the problems Africans are facing. The French leader apologized for being blunt, but, you know, there's no secret. He put it on Africa's good-for-nothing politicians and these do-nothing presidents that we have, the likes of Biya.
I'm sorry to be blunt, but it's the story of your politicians. I mean, that's the job of your government.
Where are the politicians in the room?
No, but
Senator.
that's the whole story of the government.
And President Macron dropped the bomb with regard to the CFA franc. He said he was willing to scrap it if African presidents were willing to scrap it. And I don't think he himself believes what he said.
And I have to say, some countries of ECOWAS, you know, have a currency closely linked to euro, and especially the old franc français, the franc CFA. And I told them, I think if you want to change that, I'm ready to do so. I'm open.
This is Ambazonia Calling.
That is the reason in this master plan to finish our culture and our people, you have chosen that every single administrator or every commander of the army is from East Cameroon. That is why they sit there and they can kill the people without remorse. This has to end.
That was Member of Parliament Joseph Wirba in the Cameroon's Parliament, December 2016. The story of decolonization in Africa is still ongoing, and it is not pretty. The current AMBAZONIA revolution in the Cameroons is a case in point, where a post-colonial outpost of the British and the French is in upheaval for more reasons than just language, marginalization, and what have you. The real issue at stake was self-rule from the very onset, and definitely outright sovereignty. In the current political bubble invented and made worse over 57 years by one-party dictatorship, the vocabulary in regular use now can be at best confusing to the man, woman on the street. There are those, a tiny few, who still use the forbidden words federalism, decentralization, regionalism, bilingualism, multiculturalism, liberalism, communautaire, and what have you, which tries desperately to mask colonialism and muddies the reality of a people's justified fight for decolonization and putting an end to illegal annexation. How does this impact citizens? For 57 plus years, Ambazonians have had to suffer political fools and deadwood who employ the opaqueness of their political system to swindle the people. It is a curse in the day-to-day life of citizens, penalized by political soothsayers at the helm of the state. The picture, need I remind you, isn't pretty. That is wrong that 8 million Ambazonians have set out to right. An Ambazonian minority macroculture facing extermination at the hand of a francophone majority macroculture could only lead to today's predictable frictions that have brought much grief to Ambazonians. Government, which should be of the people, for the people, by the people, has become some kind of juju that only a chosen few can tickle for their intents and purposes, while the rest of the citizenry is treated worse than the thing the cat dragged in. How did we come to this point? Voluntarily or involuntarily, we and our ancestors found our right to self-rule stolen from us. It is a right none can lose, because even before human rights, there was the right to self-rule at the most basic individual level. Every human has the right to rule him or herself, given to him by the Creator. That is why today's cause is best described by telling every Ambazonian that no one is coming to clean your backyard for you. No one is giving you freedom unless you rise and seize it from the colonizers. Your backyard, some have called it your block, includes your village, town, city, and the land of our ancestors, Mother Ambazonia. It is ours to claim or to lose. The colonizer has long wanted us to believe that Grandma and her friends can organize and successfully run a group round-robin finance co-op, otherwise known as Njangi, which enables each of them in the group to raise enough capital to run their businesses over time. Yet, they cannot rule their own community, their own village, their own town, their city, and their homeland unless Grand Camarade issued decrees. Resolving our problem, reclaiming Ambazonia, was difficult until we started organizing. The colonizer is sweating. Why? Because every colonizer knows that an organized people are a threat to tyranny. That is why they created laws to prohibit assembly of persons, freedom of speech, public debates on burning issues. That is why they equated political activism and political dissent to terrorism, creating an atmosphere of fear that held every Ambazonian free but in chains, and converted what is a triangle of land into one nation in jail. Freedom comes down to this. Citizens rise, as Ambazonians have, and they organize first, and then they go out there and without asking anyone, we take back our country. We reassert our role and responsibility as the primary determinants of our destiny. We kick the benevolent, quote-unquote, benevolent dictator and the colonialists for whom he serves as proxy out of our homeland. We clean up and reclaim our backyard one block at a time. We are getting there, fellow Ambazonians. But we must organize not only to restore our independence, but also to ensure that no politician, not even one that we elect in Boya in future, will ever again take away our inalienable right to self-rule. Viva la Revolution! This is the monk from Ibalikumato, Verdrukov himself, for Ambazonia Calling.
Here is our letter to Joshua.
Dear Joshua, there was some news out there this week that your grandson Manu Macron from the Élysée in France, I heard, I have not yet confirmed this, but you know the saying, no smoke without fire, right? So I heard that grandson Manu Macron called you up on the phone and just scolded you. I know you're mad about it, Joshua. What exactly has happened to children of this day? Can they no longer respect the gray hair on your head? Does Manu Macron not know that you are the longest reigning dictator on earth? Does he not know that when he was still being breastfed, you were already exercising tyranny at the highest level of the state? The bad thing, Joshua, is that the news cannot be recalled. It is all over the place. It did not help that he came visiting with his new love, Buhari of Nigeria, and he did not even hop over the border to Angola to say hello to you, Joshua. How the mighty have fallen. You are no longer on talking terms, even with the Élysée. If only grandson Manu Macron had read up some history, he would have seen that there was a time when you would be received in grand pomp and pageantry on the Champs-Élysées on a state visit. You would be granted long hours of tete-a-tete meetings at the Élysée Palace, where you would auction off anything that Cameroon had to the French. And then you would emerge from the audience, smiling from ear to ear, and sheepishly telling the French media, camped outside the presidential palace, that you are not even a president. No, you did not rise to that dignity. You would pride yourself of just being the best pupil of President François Mitterrand of France. Those were the days when you mattered, Joshua, when France considered you a kingpin in maintaining stability in his overseas slave plantation of Cameroon. Nowadays, grandson Manu Macron goes to Nigeria to complain about the fact that you are mismanaging France's overseas province of Cameroon. He does not even have the courtesy to call you for a face-to-face meeting, Joshua. Even France is now keeping you at telephone distance. It is a sign, Joshua. The writing is on the wall. It is really none of my business if grandson Manu Macron wants to send you to hell in a handbasket or he wants to send you to hell in a hail of bullets. But believe me, Ambazonians care enough to have asked me to advise you one more time this week to withdraw your troops from Ambazonia. Release all Ambazonian political prisoners of conscience from your jails and dungeons. Become the first country to recognize Ambazonia as a sovereign nation and invite the rest of the world to do the same. Or face your Waterloo in the war that you have declared but will never win against the people of Ambazonia. Again, this is free advice, Joshua. If Ambazonians knew that I was even giving you such advice, they would consider me a traitor, because so many of them would like to deliver your head in a platter of potopoto to Lucifer himself. Ambazonians have been told that the only reason Lucifer has not called you back home yet is because every sinner in hell has been sent out to fetch firewood, buy up all the fuel and gas that Satan needs, to light a special fire in which you deserve to burn for eternity. Should you feel thirsty in that fire, as I believe you will, just look across the great divide into heaven, and there you will see Mami Api of Kwakwa seated next to Abraham. Do not ask her to dip her finger in the water and let just a drop of water fall into your mouth. Do not ask Mami Api to be sent back to tell your brothers and sisters that it is hot in hell. They have the prophets with them already, prophets like Honorable Joseph Wilbur, who foretold this day long before now, but you would simply not listen, Joshua. It is the stupid fly that follows the corpse into the grave, Joshua. From our studios here in Washington, D.C., our producer is Jeff McCoy. Our music today is from Ken Wanaku, the monk from Balikumato, William Ford, an ambassador of blessed memory, Eric Matisse on the web at soundimage.org, and Prince Adjoa Alemanji of Ajam Sonic Kitron, USA. Ambazonia Calling is a joint production of Africa Freedom Network, the Missions Tribune, and Compass Free Press. You can find us on the web at www.themissionstribune.com, www.compassfreepress.com, and www.africafreedomnetwork.com. Next Sunday is another day. Until then, keep the spirit, keep the faith, keep up the fight for justice and independence for Ambazonia. Stay Amba strong.